Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology. I'm Alan and I'm here with the ever vehicular Adam.
Alan, babes, it's so good to be back with you.
Yeah, here we are. We're in the Tripology studio, our favourite place on planet Earth to be. Travel though we might, we like to return here to the Tripology studio to get things done.
We do, and would you believe it, we're drinking again.
Oh dear. Well, you know, sometimes these things happen. Sometimes you find yourself in life enjoying a beer with friends. That's just okay, isn't it?
It is. What are we like?
What are we like?
What are we like?
Adam, I've been here with you. We've just been to a Vietnamese restaurant, haven't we?
How would you rate it out of 10?
I thought it was quite authentically Vietnamese. Did you?
Yeah, I liked it. And, you know, I hold my hands up. I've been to Vietnam. Very lucky to have spent 2 months there. I don't feel like Vietnamese food was enough of a focus for me during my trip. And that is a regret of mine. But, you know, there's always next time.
Yeah, there is always next time. I was lucky enough to be travelling in Vietnam with someone who was very food oriented. So they would wake up of a morning, they'd have a list of restaurants that they wanted to visit on their phone. They'd be like, right, today we're going here to this street, down this right turn, take a left, and there's just a woman who's been making the same bumbo hue on the side of the road for the last 50 years, you know? So
Amazing.
he really knew what he was talking about. But I was thinking
My
about
kind of guy.
Vietnam writ large. And I was thinking about some of my transformative experiences in Vietnam. It was only the second country that I went to since I started travelling.
Wow. So you were impressionable.
Oh, I was a very impressionable traveller. Yeah, it was back in 2015. I just started travelling. I arrived in Vietnam and I was doing a workaway for this organisation called VCV. They were teaching students English.
Yeah.
They had some students, adult students, come to an apartment to learn English outside of school hours, like an adult class for people who couldn't afford English lessons at a big ESL school.
Love it.
And then they also had classes that went on peripatetically going into Vietnamese primary schools and teaching the kids.
Wicked. Did you have a preconceived idea of what this was going to be like, or were you just fresh as anything, diving in 2 feet?
I did a bit of teaching in China as part of an ESL school,
As
so
we
I had
know.
some ideas. But I rocked up to this organisation, VCV, and basically they just set me to work immediately teaching in this primary school class during the day and then in an adult class in the evening in the apartment. They just basically said, here we go, this is what we want you to teach. Here's a textbook, go ahead and teach.
That's incredible. That sounds like you were working a lot, though. Had you already enjoyed a little bit of Vietnam before embarking on this?
Not at all. I literally got off the plane in Hanoi, took a taxi straight to the apartment, the VCV apartment, and I arrived super late my first day there.
Right.
And everything was already closed. I'd failed to communicate what time I was arriving. I had to actually go up the fire escape of the apartment and just knock on the door. And thank goodness, even though it was like 1 a.m, some of the volunteers were still awake and let me in.
Oh, not handy at all, is it? Didn't have time for a banh mi.
No, not even time for a bang me before I had to get to that apartment. But the people that I was working with became some of my closest friends. I really loved the culture of waking up. I'd have 3 or 4 classes a day. So I'd get up, I'd have breakfast, I'd go and have a coffee with the other teachers.
Vietnamese coffee.
Yeah, Vietnamese coffee always, condensed milk. And
Condensed milk. Delicious. People don't want to admit it, but we love sugar. We all fucking love sugar.
I personally don't love sugar and don't eat any sugar, but there you go, to each their own. But I loved those people. I loved that culture. They became some good friends of mine. We would share ideas about how we were teaching the kids, how we were teaching the classes. And a really cool thing was that the adult class that we taught, the adults all became our friends as well. So they would take us out on the weekends on their motorcycles all around the surrounding areas of Hanoi.
That's incredible. Do you think everyone received that kind of, not service, but certainly there's a friendship there. There's a relationship that's building, isn't there? I mean, that would, for me, that coming from the outside, that would be quite unusual.
Yeah, but that was one of the foundational things about that organisation was that people who taught benefited from the experience of the locals they were teaching, and the locals benefited from not only the classes, but also having one-on-one relationships with the teachers so that they could then learn the language by just talking it with their new friends.
Yeah, I guess there's a certain amount of integration there as well, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a whole English speaking experience for the students who came to the classes.
That's incredible because I do, like I said, I regret not having Vietnamese food as a focus. And even though I spent a lot of time in Vietnam comparative to some other countries, I still don't think I really dug as deep as I could have done. I saw some amazing things, but after meeting you and speaking to you about your experiences in different countries, next time I go back, and maybe I'll apply this to every country I go to that I'm really interested in, I think having experiences in countries gives you a different perspective, a completely different outlook, and a more enriching experience as a whole. And meeting other people that are doing the same, and then getting to mix with locals like that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I tout Vietnam as being like one of my favourite countries, and I think that's in no small part due to the way in which I experienced it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you had a similar experience like this to Vietnam, but listeners to the podcast might know that a lot of travellers choose, when they go to travel in Vietnam, to buy or rent a motorcycle and travel north to south using a motorcycle.
Or south to north.
Or south to north, yeah. I mean, both routes. Obviously, I was coming from China, so I think if you're in Vietnam, north to south's nice, because then you can flick off into the rest of Southeast Asia straight from there. You know, you've got your Cambodia, Laos, Thailand route that kind of starts. And I think Vietnam's a great country to start your Southeast Asia experience in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, Ho Chi Minh is maybe becoming an Asian hub now. It's quite easy to get flights into Ho Chi Minh. But when I went there, I went from north to south just because I was coming in from Laos. So it made logistical sense. I don't know, do you know much about the seasons in Vietnam at all?
I don't really.
No, nor do I. I don't know if going north to south or vice versa is better depending on the time of year that it is.
Well, I mean, the trip is only, you could extend that trip for a couple of months, but it's a fairly short distance, north to south or south to north.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about visa lengths on this podcast before, specific to Vietnam, and I was very lucky that I was mistakenly given a 3-month, beg your pardon, visa. And I'd only applied for a 1 month at the embassy, the Vietnamese embassy in Vientiane, which is the capital of Laos.
Right. I think 3 months is a fairly standard visa that they hand out as well.
Yeah, the reason why I mentioned that was because looking back, I would not have wanted anything shorter than 3 months.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I was there for 2 months. I was teaching in Vietnam for a month and travelling in Vietnam for a month.
Yeah, and there's more than enough to do, isn't there? I mean, trying to cram all of Vietnam into a month, if you want to travel the way that we did, I would say is almost impossible.
Yeah, definitely.
Wait until you've got enough time.
But anyway, if anyone's thinking about travelling to Vietnam, a workaway teaching opportunity in Hanoi, highly, highly recommend it. This VCV was a cool organisation. Getting to know the locals. Off the back of that, I got to do that Vietnamese TV commercial, which we mentioned on the podcast. That's purely because of one of the students.
Look good you did in that white coat, mate.
Thanks so much, yeah. So one of the students I was teaching was also a casting director and said, hey, come and act in this commercial. And then every single weekend we would go out to cave systems or parks and just really experience a local side of Hanoi with these students and our relationship with them. It was really, really cool. And then after a month teaching there, me and two of my good friends who were also teaching, a woman from New Zealand and a guy from the US, we decided we're going to go on a motorcycle road trip down from the north to the south of Vietnam together. We hang up our teaching coats and we decided to go off on this adventure. And chaos ensues. We've talked about being a bad driver on this podcast before. Let's go on a short meditation break and I'll tell you about all the motorcycle chaos that happened as I sojourned down from the north of Vietnam to the south. Let's go on a med break now.
I'm nervous.
And just like that, our conscious minds return from the ether, from the surrounding air, back into our bodies. And I'm telling you about all the kinds of crazy motorcycle incidents that occurred whilst I was going on this road trip with my other two teacher friends. So we decide we're going to buy a couple of motorcycles. Fans of Vietnamese backpacking will know the Honda Win is maybe the ubiquitous Vietnamese motorcycle, isn't it?
It is. Tell me if you caught wind of this when I was there, or when you were there, sorry. But I've heard that the Honda Wins that you buy in Vietnam are actually Chinese fakes.
Nowadays, that's true. It's harder to get an original Japanese Honda Win nowadays, but it depends on what year you're buying. So, like the Honda Win that we eventually bought in Vietnam probably wasn't original because it was old enough to be an original. But now the market's getting flooded with new Chinese copies because travellers want Honda Wins, basically.
Yeah, and it's quite typical to buy your motorbike off of another backpacker.
This is it, yeah.
Whereas when I was there, I bought a Sufat motorbike. Okay. And the Sufat is like a Honda Win, but I think it's a Vietnamese equivalent. Please write in to tropologypodcast@gmail.com if that's incorrect or correct. Just send us an email.
Yeah, it's tropologypodcast@gmail.com. Send an email all the time or DM us at tropologypodcast on Instagram. So we bought these Honda Wins too from another backpacking couple. And we were excited about this adventure. The whole time I'd been teaching, I'd basically been driven around by students and by my friend, this guy from the US.
On scooters?
On scooters and motorbikes.
Right.
And I was excited to obtain this Honda Win. And I thought, well, do you know what? I've never driven a motorbike before, but I've driven mopeds a little bit in Sicily. How hard could it be? I basically got on this Honda Win for the first time. My friend was like, don't worry about it. We're about to go on this month-long adventure. You'll get the hang of it as we go, but just give it a little bit of throttle down this road and just get to grips with it a little bit. I got on the Honda Win, I revved it up, and in first gear sort of made it slowly to the end of the road. I was like, okay, that wasn't so bad. Walked it back across the street, started again. I thought, okay, now I'm going to try and move through the gears a little bit and try and get some control of this thing. I revved it a little bit. It took off from under me and blasted into the side door of a car across the street.
Without you on it?
I sort of came off it at some point during the journey from the middle of the road to the edge of the road. It cracked into this...
You'd already bought it at this stage?
Yeah, I paid for it.
Shitting.
Yeah, this was my motorcycle at this point.
Oh my God. Who was teaching you how to ride it?
No, I was just trying to learn to ride it by feel alone.
Self-taught, right, yeah. Brilliant.
My friend had...
what could possibly go wrong,
My friend was a good motorcycle driver.
Yeah.
And he just said, you'll be fine. So I was just trying to figure it out. And this was my very first experience doing this. I thought, surely it can't be a problem. But anyway, I've blasted it into the side door of this guy's vehicle.
Any damage?
Yeah.
Oh, considerable.
A little bit of damage. No, the bumper hung down and it was all
of the
bruised.
car.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake.
But you'll never believe this. He gets out.
And he was in it. It wasn't. I assumed it was parked.
Yeah, it was parked, but he was in it. And he just watched this white guy fly across the road into his vehicle like a projectile. But we went back and forth a little bit, and as he called his son over who spoke English, and we chatted to him. I ended up giving him $50 US.
As just a compensation to say sorry, hope that pays for the damage kind of thing.
And he was happy with that. He shook my hand.
Crikey. Not a good look, mate, I'll be honest with you.
Terrible, isn't it?
And I have to say, riding a motorbike, or at least learning to ride a motorbike in a city like Hanoi, which if you've been to Hanoi, you will know exactly what we're talking about. If you haven't been, there are rumours that there are more motorbikes and scooters in Vietnam than people.
Right.
Already that is a mental stat, especially if it's true.
Yeah.
But lots of people learn to ride motorbikes in Hanoi. And if you've never seen a video of someone crossing the road on foot as a pedestrian in Hanoi, watch it, because I love doing it. It's kind of like an adrenaline rush. When you learn how to do it, you've just got to keep walking across the road without stopping, right? Just to make sure that the people that are sort of riding motorbikes alongside you as you cross the road, if you stop, you startle them, because it's they're basically gauging where you're going to be by the time that they meet you, so they know whether to swerve in front or behind you. Yeah. But I learned to ride my motorbike when I was in Hanoi, and I bought it off a mechanic. Yeah. So he's a Vietnamese guy.
This is another standard thing that backpackers do. Yeah.
I bought it off of a mechanic who had obviously taken it in from someone and then tuned it up or whatever. But he was so ready to get rid of it. I paid $325 US, and one of the conditions of me buying the motorbike was that he taught me how to ride it. So of an afternoon, someone else was looking after his little workshop, which was you couldn't have even fit the motorbike inside his workshop. Yeah. It was just one of those rolling doors on a high street in Hanoi, with loads of tools and motorcycle bits hanging off the wall. He took me out to this suburb of Hanoi, which was still way too busy to learn a motorbike on, or learn how to ride a motorbike on. And I went up and down the street maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
Almost fell off every single time. And he was like, there you go.
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean, there you go? He was like, that's fine.
Right, but that's what most people do. And that would have been great for me.
Progress.
If I had had a Vietnamese mechanic showing me how to ride, that would be better. Instead, what happened was my friend strapped me to the back of it. I took 2 goes, and on the second go, became a missile. So, like, it's a common thing. I should say now. There's going to be people listening to this who think, "Oh, I got a motorcycle in Vietnam, rode it for the first time, and it was fine." Yeah, and for the vast majority of backpackers, it is fine. I'm an idiot when it comes to vehicular nonsense.
Yeah.
But also, it was trying circumstance, wasn't it? I mean, I was just thrown on the back of it, tried it, didn't work. So then we basically decided to bail on the motorcycle plan.
Oh, altogether, just because you couldn't ride it?
Well, yeah. Also, the state of this motorcycle now was questionable, and it left all the sour taste in our mouth. So we were just like, let's sell these motorcycles quickly.
Oh, no.
Managed to sell them to some other backpackers. Make sure they were all mechanically sound.
But hang on, there's 3 of you, right?
Yeah, but
And 2 bikes.
the Kiwi girl was just going to ride on the back of one of these motorcycles.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. 2 between 3.
So we checked the bike was undamaged, and it was, and we ended up just breaking even on the whole sorry experience, basically. Sold them on. We're open and honest with the people that we sold them on to about what had happened.
You made a profit.
No. Sold them for the same price.
He made a profit, guys. I can see it in his eyes. He's a shrewd businessman, this Alan.
No, so there we go. We basically, the whole motorcycle thing, we were just like, we want just for this not to have happened.
That motorcycle can tell stories. It's worth at least an extra $100.
Yeah, exactly. You see that? That's, nice Mercedes bumper. Right. So we sold the bikes off, and we decided we're going to take a bus for the first little bit, and then we're going to rent scooters and
Much
do the
easier,
High
a
Van
scooter.
Pass, which is a very picturesque, beautiful road. We're going to do on scooters, yeah?
Okay, fair enough.
Amazing. So we're travelling down from north to south. We're having a whale of a time. We're playing cards. We're getting on like houses on fire. We're meeting people. We're seeing all these temples and sites. It's amazing. We get to Hue, and we decide we're going to rent these scooters to go from Hoi An down to Da Nang via Hue, right?
Yeah.
So we rent these scooters, and I'm riding one, and the Kiwi girl's riding on the back of the US guy's scooter. Obviously, no one wanted to ride on the back of my scooter after the incident. And we're going on the High Van Pass. And I'm thinking, this is absolutely beautiful, this whole trip. I'm loving it.
Great way to see Vietnam. Most countries, but certainly Vietnam.
100%. Highly recommend the whole scooter, motorcycle, north to south, south to north thing. I think it's really great. But I am a bit of an idiot when it comes to vehicular nonsense. So we're on this High Van Pass. My friends have gone ahead. And basically, I take a corner. And on this high up, altitudinous gravel road with a cliff to one side, my bike skids on some gravel.
Oh, no. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
What are you wearing on your legs?
I'm in. Can you guess?
Oh, was it your
I was just in
spandex?
shorts.
Oh, no, shorts,
I'm just in shorts. I'm just in shorts and a t-shirt. Like the idiot backpackers who go to Vietnam and think, not only can I not ride a motorcycle, but I'm sure I can. And not only am I not going to ride a motorcycle in leathers and protective gear, I'm going to basically wear shorts, a t-shirt and a helmet.
Yeah, it's not good at all. And I want to make this point live on air.
Yeah.
Because I think it's something I noticed, and I've spoken to other travellers about it since. Local people, Vietnamese people, that are riding their motorbikes or scooters through villages, from my experience, go significantly slower than literally every other backpacker I've ever seen on a scooter.
Sure, that's true. Yeah.
Some people drive so quickly on these motorbikes, even through villages where you really should show some respect. Yeah. And maybe there aren't speed limits, but you're also going through very small villages where there might be people crossing the road, little children playing, sometimes animals like people's dogs. Just, guys, please slow down.
Yeah.
Just take it easy. And if you want to go for a rip, as lots of backpackers do, wait until you're out of a village. There's nothing fucking hard or big about going 110 kilometers an hour through a tiny Vietnamese village.
There you go. Yeah. take that advice from Adam, Tropology listeners. I don't think I was going that fast. I think
On a scooter, I doubt it.
I think, yeah, exactly. It's like a little 50cc scooter. I think I was just going the normal speed, but I come off anyway. I come off this scooter and I roll through the gravel.
Oh, shit.
And
In your shorts?
In my shorts. I've got one piece of gravel enters into my elbow and then slices up. Now, Adam is here live with me.
I wasn't expecting this at all.
On youtube.com/Atropology Podcast. We'll be able to see high definition video. I don't know if the cameras will pick this up, but you can see the scar, hey?
Well, this is now 8 years on.
This is
and
8
you're
years
showing
on.
me it's a brutal scar. I mean,
Describe that scar to people.
it's incredibly obvious. It's a lot wider than you would like.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It looks like an exclamation mark on my forearm.
It does, yeah, a very
I could
definite
use it
one.
to punctuate sentences.
I mean, what is it? It's probably at least 6 inches.
Yeah. I mean, it depends how generous your measurements are. But yeah, no, I'd say 3 inches, Adam. So you can see
6.
there's a piece of
Same
gravel
thing.
went into my arm and then sliced vertically. And the
Okay.
bone of my forearm was completely exposed. Like I could see my own forearm bone.
Oh,
It was
that's
deep.
disgusting.
And then on my knee, I have a matching one, the same sort of situation on my knee.
Right.
Still to this day. I mean, this is 8 years later. So I,
Bleeding, was it? Or...
like I'm losing consciousness and going into shock on the side of this gravel road.
Jesus.
I'm like completely helpless. My bike is just in the middle of the road. I managed to like roll myself to the far side of the road, like getting off the middle of this gravel road, thinking there might be traffic coming.
It might seem like it's a really strange question now, but you had your backpack with you on your back or the back of the scooter?
On my back.
It was on you were riding with it on your back.
Yeah, I
wearing
imagine so. I imagine that's the case. I'm just trying to think where my backpack would have been. It must have been, strapped to the bike or on my back. So I managed to roll myself to the side of the road, and I just think, like, oh God, I hope my friends turn back around. My friends have like gone off ahead.
Oh, you were at the back of the group.
Yeah. Going the speed limit, you know. and I'm losing consciousness a little bit, right? And all of a sudden, things start to happen.
Yeah.
My friends, I sort of see them come in the distance. I'm like, okay, my friends have seen me.
Yeah.
And then a group of Vietnamese hikers are coming the other way towards me.
Right.
And I'll remember this for the rest of my life because it occupies such a specific state of delirium.
Mm-hmm.
I'm bleeding, bones exposed, side of the road, need the help. These hikers are coming up and they're playing English language learning tape as they're hiking.
Right.
And it consists of like my last memories of sort of before I'm like passing out.
Yeah.
Are of like the blasting of like loads of Vietnamese phrases and then my favourite football team is Manchester United.
Arsenal,
and then a
yeah.
load of blasting Vietnamese phrases and then I would like to order 2 teas and a coffee.
Oh, it was like a translation
Yeah,
type
it
thing
was
going
just
on. That's so funny.
Absolutely, just like conversational Vietnamese learning tapes. And then they came up to me and like poured iodine on my arm.
Yeah.
And it stung like all hell. And my friends come and luckily they have a first aid kit, a band-aid. They wrap me up. We drive into the nearest town, which I believe was Hue.
And the adrenaline's going, you're half conscious. This is all a bit of a blur, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. We go to this doctor's and they basically clear the wound and they pour hydrochloric acid on this fizzy white foaming acid which hurt more than anything I've ever experienced in my life up to
for
that point.
fuck's sake.
Onto raw bone. It's awful. There are pictures of me in that doctor's. They're crazy pictures. I don't know if I can post them on the Instagram. They might be like too graphic for Instagram, but we'll try.
See if we can dig them out.
Yeah.
That's rough, mate. I
It
really
was
feel for
painful, man. And it obviously affected the rest of the trip quite profoundly. I remember being desperate that it didn't affect anyone else's enjoyment. So the next day I was like, no, we'll go to the monkey temple. We can. But I was like, it was hard to walk. It was rough. My friend, the Kiwi girl, had to like dress my wounds every night and like take the band-aids off and, you know, put Vaseline on them so they wouldn't stick to the band-aids. It was one of the worst injuries ever.
Yeah, it sounds
For
very...
me, not the worst injury ever objectively. I'm sure other people have suffered far worse.
No, completely. But what I would say about that is that if anyone can learn from your mistakes, a trip can quickly go from being very enjoyable to you potentially being a burden for other people, as it sounds. Sure. But it's very difficult to enjoy your trip if that's the case. And I've been involved in similar things where I've escaped narrowly, which I will tell on other episodes for sure. But if it's just a case of you spending an extra day learning how to ride or making sure that you haven't been influenced by any other backpackers, if you're on a motorbike, honestly, your life can change in the blink of an eye.
100%. Like, I got off really lightly in that I had completely healable injuries, and I have quite, nicely hideable scars as a result, but you can tell how bad the injury was by how permanent those are on my skin, and it could have easily been far, far worse than that. I don't want to discourage people from going to Vietnam and getting a motorcycle, because most people will be fine, but I wasn't confident enough to be riding a motorcycle or a scooter. Definitely not.
Because you don't need a license to buy one.
No.
I don't think you need a license to ride one either.
Not at all. No, I wasn't doing anything illegal. I was doing stuff that most backpackers do. And you see, as well, in hostels in Vietnam, as I'm sure you remember, so many people with injuries, right, from riding.
Yeah, there was a guy in Thailand, I've just remembered now, he was on Koh Tao. Really, nice guy, Australian guy from Perth, handsome, like that kind of guy that you see around the hostel that everyone's saying hello to, doesn't matter which group it is, he seems to have a relationship with everyone. Super, super sweet guy.
I've met him.
And then one morning, I woke up, went down to the hostel common room, and he's sitting there with his entire leg bandaged up, can't walk.
Yeah.
He's got his arm in a fucking thing as well.
A sling.
And his sorry, not a thing, a sling. And he's got scratches all over his face. And I was like, mate, oh my goodness, what's happened? And he told me he had the most awful crash on a scooter, and a wooden stake ended up going right into his foot.
Jeez.
Yeah, and it's just it changes your trip.
Yeah, 100%.
I know that, obviously the important thing is that you survive and that it's okay, and that you maybe, if it's your fault, that only you were involved, and however which way you cut it. But I think what it boils down to is, let's assume that you are okay. Your trip is fucked.
Oh, totally.
Your trip goes straight out the window.
Yeah, absolutely. And
anything you might have wanted to do in that month in Vietnam is now gone. It's changed completely.
Yeah.
Now you've got to accommodate the fact that you're walking around with this injury.
Luckily, that wasn't the case for me.
Good.
The worst thing that the scars were easy enough to heal. They were quite clean wounds in the end, but I had road rash, which really sucked for a long time.
Especially with your hairy legs.
Yeah.
Growing back through the scabs.
Yeah, so obviously, it can change in an instant, and I would just encourage people to have a little think before, maybe get some experience doing it in the safest possible way before you just fling yourself into some of the most populated motorcycle cities on earth.
I like the way you did it as well, mate, because when I bought a motorbike, I was very, very fortunate to be with a Canadian guy, funnily enough, who I'm sure will feature on the podcast multiple times.
Yeah.
But he's got a lot of dirt bike experience and can seemingly fix any issue with a screwdriver and some duct tape. So I had him for my trip. I was riding on my own for most of it, but I would always bump into people who were riding the same way. So we'd kind of travel together for a couple of days. Now, my honest advice, just from my own experience, if you are thinking about doing a motorbike trip, is potentially go on your own or with one other and be open to joining groups for a short period. Do not go in a group.
Okay.
I met a group of motorcyclists that were all Western backpackers. And the moment I joined the group for even just one journey from point to point between two towns, I couldn't fucking wait to get rid of them.
Really?
Yeah, and they'd been travelling for 4 weeks together. And they didn't even know each other from back home. They kind of accrued this gang, this motorcycle gang. But it's just too much going on. You can't be the leader. You can't sway people to do things that you want to do. And I think it's ultimately more dangerous, especially if you're with a rowdy crowd and everyone's picking up the speed a little bit. You're more likely to be influenced. Okay. It might be fun until it goes wrong. So I know that I'm kind of generalizing here and maybe speaking a little bit out of turn, but I do think it's better to take your time, take it slow, show some respect, and, you know, maybe just share your trip with one other or pick people up along the way.
I like it. You're good on the advice today, mate.
Trying my best, mate. I'm trying to speak up a little bit more about that kind of thing. I'm no expert, but I'm just telling you how I feel.
But you've been travelling, man. You've been travelling a lot. That's why you're a lot of resident things on Tripology. You're the resident foodie. I think maybe you should be resident health and safety inspector as well. Would you like that title?
That's what people call me anyway. That is my...
There you go.
You speak to anyone back home where I'm from, if they know me, if you ask them about my driving, they actually... let's say we're going somewhere, me and my friends, there's a group of, 12 of us. Everyone always chooses to not go with me because they want to get there the same day.
Well, I felt very safe in your car.
Cautious driver, but slow.
Yeah,
I won't have an accident, or if I do, it'll be at 10 miles an hour, so everyone will be fine.
It'll be someone else's fault. Well, there you go. I mean, Vietnam, one of my favourite countries, one of Adam's favourite countries, but maybe be careful of the motorcycles, the bipedal creatures of the vehicular world. Motorcycles on two wheels. I've never driven one of those before, but I'm in Vietnam, so why not? And that's when accidents happen. But accidents do make good stories. Adam, I don't know about you, but I'm finding myself now climbing a sort of ladder to the top of a hill, a vantage point from which I can see the beautiful brightness of tomorrow juxtaposed against the horrible onyx sky of the present. So I'm thinking, let's blast off from the now and head to next week, a place where we can make more episodes of this wonderful podcast that we call Tripology. Is there anything you'd like to shout out at the end of the episode? Perhaps an Instagram account, email address, or Patreon?
Tripologypodcast@gmail.com, @Tripologypodcast. Sign up to the Patreon, guys. Come on, it's good value for money.
Yeah, patreon.com/Tripology podcast. I don't know about you, but I'm going to head to next week right now. Let's go.
I want to do it with you, Alan.
Head to next week. Let's go now. Bye.